Hello, I'm Kathy Fox Alfano, host of Born TV's Election 22, Why Should We Vote for You? Today I'm welcoming Susan Moran, Democratic candidate for State Senate. Sue, thank you so much for coming to Born. We would really like to get to know you better. Sue has been our state senator since 2020, in May, I believe. First, Sue, please tell us just what does a state senator do?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for this forum. It's really always great to have an opportunity to reach out and talk about issues with constituents, voters. The state senate is sort of the policy branch, and I was really interested in running after having worked in local government for so long. I chaired the Board of Selectmen in Falmouth for just about 6 years. I also, during that period of time, I volunteered for every possible committee that would inform me on issues. Water Collaborative, for example, veterans issues. I was a deputy speaker of the legislative government for all of Cape Cod, the Assembly of Delegates, and through that I was able to chair economic development for the region. So I took my background as a lawyer, where studying facts and the issues and listening to people really is important, and I've now had an opportunity to bring it to the State House to get the resources for the programs that I want to bring to Bourne and the Plymouth Barnstable district.
What do you feel you've done with the office so far?
So the district, I'll just let folks know, it's right now 4 towns on each side of the canal. Okay. So we've got Bourne, Sandwich, Falmouth, bringing in Mashpee to the Plymouth Barnstable district. Then on the other side, Plymouth, Kingston, Pembroke, and we're bringing in Plimpton. Many things have happened over the past couple of years, notwithstanding the real health crisis of COVID, which I've been on the public health joint committee, and so there's been a lot of direct interaction. I also worked with colleagues such as Senator Sear to bring the unique resources that the Cape needs. That's something that folks might not be aware of in terms of the backdrop issues. It's my job to fight for resources that can oftentimes in the state be Boston-centric. So that's one of my favorite things to do. As a litigator for almost 30 years, that's where I excel.
Wonderful. Okay, so here in Bourne, we have 2 very concerning environmental issues. One, I know you know all about this, Holtec, trying to dump, 1 million gallons of wastewater, radioactive wastewater into the bay. And then, of course, the canal, where we have a potential outfall up to 10 million gallons a day into, well, it's into the canal, which, of course, goes into Buzzards Bay. How can you help us with those?
So what I've been doing with respect to Holtec, I'm the lead legislator that was able to bring legislators from both sides of the canal, right down Senator Sear, Rep. Peake, and others from the tip, Provincetown, all the way through Plymouth and Plymouth area. We know that radioactive waste will poison our Cape Cod Bay, and if there was any sort of accident, it would go, the studies have shown, further than Iceland. This is an issue that has a wide-ranging potential effect, and yet in the legislature, it's always been a fight to try to have that representation. So I have brought both sides together with the Attorney General's office, looking at the memorandum which guides us in the rules, looking at permitting, all of the experts from the state. And in fact, we just had a meeting this week and got some really great progress, because we're going to, what we did in Senator Markey's office, along with Elizabeth Warren and Congressman Keating, are really leading this fight in terms of the federal side. My colleagues and I are leading the fight, the state side. one of the things that we were able to achieve just this week is to have the next testing for the wastewater to actually be witnessed by the state. So the state is not just going to accept whatever is dropped off, but to actually monitor and witness the collection. So what we're striving for is more transparency so that folks understand as they are due, and the information that's been out there has up till now, Holtec has been really sort of cloistered, and so we want to get the information to folks so that they can comment and know every step of the way what's happening. We're working closely with our federal delegation to do that. Similar principles are applying when we look at wastewater in Bourne and the potential outfall into the canal. So when I was a Falmouth Select person, I volunteered to be on the Water Collaborative, and that has given me an incredible base of knowledge as well as access and, in fact, friendships with experts in the area. So when we talk about chemical reactions that the flow of water, whether it's sort of tidal, the wind is involved. These are, there are a lot of scientific organizations on the Cape, particularly in Falmouth Woods Hole. I've worked with the scientists for years and years. And what we're trying to do is really study, whether it's Holtec or looking at Bourne, we want to know what the effect of the tidal concepts are, what the effect of where the water travels, what sort of things might the dumped water encounter, and does that make it more risky? We don't want to make decisions now that are going to affect our children's future if we don't have all of the information. I mean, you look at PFAS, right? So right now we have as an analogy, we have a huge job and a very costly job in cleaning up PFAS, whether it was from the firefighters' foam, which I really had experience in a lot of hearings as a county government member. All of this experience plays into how to handle these problems that we have right now, as do the relationships.
And then there's the bridges. Yes. Here in Bourne, we are still waiting to hear anything about the timeline, the design, and especially the construction of the local access roads. What can you do to help us with that?
So I'll tell you that we all know the bridges are going to have to be repaired, replaced. They're done in about 10 years or so. What I've been doing is working with Secretary Tessler, working with Senator Markey and others from the federal delegation to bring resources to Bourne and the Cape so that our businesses don't get hurt, so that there's communication about what kind of access is going to be needed and how we can look at how that affects our neighbors and our businesses. If we look at my experience in Falmouth, for example, the expansion of Route 28, while I was chair of the Board of Selectmen, was slated to take up people's yards so that their kids couldn't even play ball in front of the house. I formed a committee that would have unfettered access to all the state experts that the Board of Selectmen did. There was a committee that would walk the actual job and speak with the state about, well, gee, do you really need to take that tree, or is that just a cost-saving, expediting measure? Because a tree is important. Right. Or do we need lanes that are that so wide that I'm going to lose a good piece of my front yard? And the project, just like many, is much better when you have that kind of collaboration. So that's my goal. Right now there are two proposals that have gone. The Army Corps of Engineers right now still owns the bridges, and we're at this point, one has moved forward, one has not at this point. I've just this morning been having my chief of staff set a meeting with the federal delegation. We want to know exactly what was reviewed and what we need to do to be sure that Cape Cod Plymouth Barnstable District and Bourne all have immediate access to financial support and every other support to get this done as a way that will protect our homes and our businesses as much going forward.
Wonderful. Sue is currently the Senate Chair of the Joint Committee on Consumer Protection. What is the latest in consumer protection?
So I took a hands-on approach with my co-chair, Taki Chan, and it's consumer protection, but it also does public licensure. For example, all of the outdoor dining that we're enjoying right now, that comes through our committee, for example. Wow. On the consumer protection side, I stood up against fraudulent contractors that were not being properly recorded by the state as having claims against them in other states. For example, there was a time, right now of course it's tough to get contractors because of post-COVID issues and supply issues, but a lot of seniors especially are familiar with just having knocks on the door. Oh gee, I see you need would you like your driveway coded because I'm doing a driveway up the street and I can offer you a deal. That sometimes involves even access into the house. If it could be a contractor, do you have any squeaky doors? Is there anything, do you have a project you'd like to do? So we had complaints that were given to the state about contractors that were putting consumers in danger, that had bad records, dangerous records, and also that were charging and billing folks for work that was not done. And as my background in consumer protection as a lawyer has informed me on this, when I asked the Senate President for this committee, I submitted to her the background that I have, and that's really why I became chair so immediately. And that's the great thing about being the majority as a Democrat in the Senate, to be able to chair these crucial committees.
I am particularly concerned about consumer protection for seniors. I have heard story after story of these unscrupulous people just feasting on seniors. What can we do specifically for seniors?
So one of the pieces that I've done with the state is to really lift up communication. We've beefed up the website. We've got an actual customer service liaison, which not only helps answer questions for seniors in particular and others, but anyone that needs state licensure, say you're a realtor, or other than, I don't deal with medical, but every other licensure, electricians, plumbers, we can't wait for those folks, especially young people who are coming into those businesses. We're working so hard with our trade schools. Upper Cape is doing an incredible job. We want those folks to be employed and as soon as they're ready, and the state licensure is going to be expedited as the communication piece is as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. I know you are also Vice Chair of the Joint Committee on Public Health. Will we be more prepared next time to fight the next epidemic? Because you know they will be.
I would say yes, because many lessons were learned, especially about getting information out. One of the things I listened to time and time again were from the municipal, local, hospital teams who already had a pandemic plan. And they would ask, why isn't the governor using the plan that we're trained for? And well, certainly, you know, this is a unprecedented challenge, COVID, and I think the administration, obviously, first time out there was trying new websites. Of course, then the website crashed. Lots of unexpected administrative hurdles were put in place of getting shots in arms, for example, and getting information out there. So what we did on the Cape, and just partnered the whole delegation. We've got the Senator Sear and I, we were at the administration, made a special pitch for treating the Cape differently. We were on radio. We had monthly updates with, for example, the RTA. The administrator, Tom Kerr, Bourne, obviously,
Right.
did a terrific job in letting folks know how are we keeping safe on buses and for transportation so you can get to medical appointments. Who's got testing available? What are the hours? Where do you go? We dealt with hospital administrators and integrated all those processes in Sandwich. The chief of the fire department, who's got experience in pandemics, did a fantastic job in getting all of the municipal folks vaccinated and offering those vaccines if they wanted, and really just keeping the many pieces moving as we could. I think we will do better in the future because this sort of training is incredibly helpful. And all of the first responders, whether it's police, fire, hospital, nursing, municipal, really are due an incredible amount of gratitude. What I've done, I've been funding our police departments. I was just at the swearing in of the Bourne
Yes.
new police chief, and I had been funding a mental health counselor
Yeah.
to be able to supplement the public safety aspect of that office. And we can't forget, our police and fire in particular have had incredible exposure to hazardous materials, incredible exposure to emotional circumstances. If we don't support our first responders, then we don't have a first line. And there's certainly, in other parts of the country, in fact, with the legislation that the Senate put forth, which I'm still working with chiefs of police on, they called me and said, we know there's going to be some changes in administration, and we want you to please vote so that officers who have experience will have more say in these changes. And that's exactly what I did, and that was against the leadership position. But I want folks to know that the main job of Senate is listening. It's listening to constituents, and it's really bringing forth the community's real unique requirements, and that's what I'm doing and going forward.
I also wanted to talk to you about women's issues, women's health, protections. I think we have seen such unexpected changes. We have less rights now than we did in 1976. What are you going to do about those things?
So the good thing is that in Massachusetts, we still have those state rights.
Right.
In Massachusetts, we have been in the Senate working on health care, whether it's mental health, public health, health care, particularly for women moving forward. The Senate has passed a bill to be sure that providers, college students, we are a mecca to attract folks from all over the country. And in Massachusetts, women's health rights are human health rights, and they're supported still. That being said, I think we really need to take heed, and for women in particular, families, we look at child care needs. Women are often the ones who stayed home. My bill that you can see at commonstartma.org is about getting women back to work.
Right.
We should not be in a position of treating women as second-class citizens, whether it's in the amount of salary we make, the positions we earn, and I think that it really is important to make sure that we don't slide in that regard, and we join together as the intelligent force that I understand. I think women make up more than half of the world, so I think.
But we've lost, I believe, 25% of the daycare centers.
That's true. We've lost some in Bourne.
Yes.
And it really has to do with the economy right now and the fact that we're in flux. When we get back in front of voting for the Economic Development Bill, which will be soon, even though the auditor, Suzanne Bump, has said there's a big chunk of money, millions, going back to taxpayers, we still have enough to do great things in that regard. And I'm very hopeful that my child care bill, along with Senator Lewis, we're co in front of that, will be able to proceed. It's an economic development bill. We need to get women in particular back to work, and we need to have eyes and healthy circumstances on children from age 0 that people can afford. Our young people are paying as much as a mortgage or monthly rent for a home on child care, and that is stagnating the generation that I think is our immediate promise going forward.
You just mentioned housing. Housing, especially workforce housing, is a huge issue for me. I know it's something we have to do something about now. Do you have any plans to help on workforce housing?
So I just read today that Maura Healey and Kim Driscoll have a new housing plan.
Okay.
Before it was announced, they came to my district in Plymouth, right where the administration had shut down the train, notwithstanding there was what's called a 40-yard development that was depending on that train. Maura Healey and Kim Driscoll came for a tour, and I said, this doesn't make any sense. The delegation from Plymouth had been challenging the administration on that closure, and I was happy that they made that one of their, I think it was their second campaign stop after the primary. Those are the kinds of plans we need to pay attention to. The other thing I hear all over the district is the governor's one-size-fits-all plan to build everything around transportation, a good theory, but no one is listening to our town-by-town circumstances. So I have, in every town that I have brought forth to the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development the problems with the plan. So we're in flux right now with a new administration coming in, and I think that all of the ideas that Falmouth, Bourne, Sandwich, Mashpee, and others have put forward, I think there's going to be more focus going forward. So we won't have that carrot and stick. In other words, if right now you're not getting money for the projects that you need from the state unless you shoehorn something that would work in Boston. We don't need any more of that.
Right. Public libraries are very close to my heart. As you know, I'm the chair of the Bourne Public Library Board of Trustees. But I have to tell you that trying to renovate a library, ours is 125 years old, built as a school, getting a library for this century is an arduous and decades-long prospect. What can you do to help us add more funding and an easier process to renovate or rebuild libraries?
So I share your love of libraries. I think they're here to stay. I think they're the best way to gather, especially for children, and collaboration. I've been on a library board, in fact, before I was on the Board of Selectmen in Falmouth, and I was integrally involved with the renovation of the West Falmouth Library, which is mostly private, not all. And I'll tell you my thought, we've done a great job of having school renovations through a state program that just works seamlessly. Why can't public libraries plug into that?
Please.
Why can't municipal buildings plug into that? I don't think there's any reason why we can't replicate that moving forward. That's one of the things I'm going to be doing in my next term, and I hope the voters will support that.
Wonderful. And now finally, Sue, why should we vote for you?
I'll have to say I'm going to rely on my track record. I came to the job of senator after a real challenge in several elections during COVID. And that sort of advocacy, I count on my background as a lawyer and as a mediator, has really brought me to where I am today, along with many opportunities for collaboration. I've collaborated in county government, in state government. Even as a member of the Board of Selectmen, I was at the State House arguing against the nuclear dumping in Cape Cod Bay way before I was a senator. These are all issues I'm familiar with. As part of the majority Democratic Senate, I will get more and more opportunities to chair committees to move the issues that are most important outside Boston. And that's what I love the most, really lifting up the important concerns of our community. And I look forward to continuing to do that with my experience.
Thank you so much, Sue, and best of luck in our upcoming election on November 8th. You've been watching this on Born TV. Please watch these and my other interviews on borntv.com. Please watch, meet all the candidates, and then you be the judge. Get out and vote. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Kath. Appreciate it.